Yeah. Right. Action.
Right, okay.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 7 of the Paul Ryder tapes. I'm Angela Smith, Paul's ex-wife, and as we all know, Paul sadly passed away in July of 2022. He didn't do many interviews, but he was so frustrated by the lies that had been told about him and the band that he wanted to set the record straight and decided to sit down with me to tell his complete life story. He wanted to share his crashing lows as well as the highs, hoping it might help others going through similar things. I was absolutely blown away by what followed and how much he opened up. We had no idea he was about to die, and we finished recording his story just 12 days before he passed away. Coming up in this episode.
That was a funny day. We was going to do a bit of swapping and changing, weren't we? So I think I was going to go and play the drums for the Mondays, and someone was going to come and do something play the bass for the Roses and so on.
McGee came up with Sean wants to write all the music for the new Mondays album. And it's like, yeah, take my job away, dude.
So I was always in the Mondays office trying to get this role that wasn't created yet as the girl from the Mondays because I loved T-Rex and I wanted to be that girl. To do something like that with the Mondays.
I found him once in the tape store with a little record player that was hooked up to a little stereo system, and it was in the pitch dark, just dancing to ABBA.
And he said, "We've done it." I said, "Yeah, fucking great. We've played Wembley." He went, "No, you dick. I wore knickers all the way through the show."
So last time we were talking about your second album, Bummed. So where was that mixed?
We mixed it in Strawberry in Stockport,
right,
but recorded in Great Driftfield.
Was that the first time you met John Pennington?
Yeah, in Strawberry.
Yeah. When
he was like 17 years old.
I left school at 16 and went straight into Strawberry Studios after a stint of summertime landscape gardening, which was terrible. The first session I did was Echo and the Bunnymen. Second one was the Smiths' Queen is Dead album. And those were like amazing kind of experiences. And then Martin asked me to get involved with the Happy Mondays project. Most of the backing tracks had been recorded, guitar, bass, and drums. So most of the time was recording vocals and basically finishing off this entire project.
The legendary Tony Wilson had signed the band to his factory label, and he was keen to hear how the album was going to turn out. This is him speaking in 2005, before his untimely death.
The right producer and the right songwriters were chosen. Pop is like movies. Movies, you've got the screenwriter, you've got the director, the producer, and you've got the actors, all the talent. All coming together to make something great. Pop is putting the right package together like in a movie.
Paul and Sean's mum Linda has really fond memories of Tony.
Tony Wilson never called Derek, and he never called me Linda. He always called me Mrs. Ryder and Mr. Ryder. And Derek once asked him, why didn't he call him Derek? And he said, that is a sign of respect.
John Pennington, mixing the Bummed album at Strawberry Studios at the tender age of 17, had his work cut out.
When Sean came in, he was on lots of different substances. I can't tell you what he was taking at the time, but it was, sometimes they'd come in and they'd say, right, okay, we're going to start the session at 2 a.m. So they'd come back in from the Hacienda and they'd all be off their brains on probably ecstasy or acid or both. From the first session that I did, I just put a microphone in front of it. He ended up grabbing it and, just shouting into it, which with a very, very high quality, very expensive microphone is not the way you're meant to do it.
When Factory signed them, Anthony Wilson sent me a great big case of champagne.
It was absolute chaos because, I'd say, right, okay, we're ready to do a vocal take now. And I'd say to the band, like, where's Sean? And I'd have to go and find him. And I found him once in the tape store with a little record player that was hooked up to a little stereo system. And it was in the pitch dark, just dancing to ABBA. I don't know, Dancing Queen, I can't remember what it was.
I'd never had a drink in my life till I was in the 40s. I'd never been interested in alcohol. And I got the champagne. They used to say to me, "Oh, come on, mother, have a drink. Relax, have a drink."
I'd set up 3 microphones. So one, which was like a dummy microphone, which Sean could hear. And then another one behind that, which was the real microphone. And then 2 either side of him, if he wandered off, and, I could capture that. So I had 4 microphones going on. And then he just did the vocal once, right? And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. What basically became the chorus was the and at the end of the song, you can actually hear where I start getting bored of putting the It's kind of like playing the sample on different octaves. So there's like a high one and a low, and then up the top. I was 17 working with this great band, and they're all having a lot of fun, doing whatever they're doing, wherever they're doing it.
Tony Wilson sent me, it was like a thing of cardboard box with all these miniature bottles of vodka, all different flavours, and they were lovely, except the peppered one. I didn't like that.
We wasn't even going to do a song called Rave On. It was a work in progress.
Yeah.
It was going to be the 2 other songs and an old song. And it was like, no, this is too old. We need to do something new. And I had this idea of a bass line for Rave On, which became Rave On.
Yeah.
So we wrote it in the studio in Oxford at Richard Branson's residential studio. But Richard Branson's studio was mega. It had this like outdoor pool, and it was winter time, but it had a big blow-up dome over the pool. So it was like bathwater when you got in it.
Nice.
For us coming from where we came from, to living in a mansion with go-karts at a race golf kart course at the bottom of the garden, and an outdoor pool with a dome over it, was kind of special.
Did you think, we've made it now?
No, still has a lot to prove. I thought we was on our way, especially with doing that song Rave, turned into Rave On, doing something new and writing it in the studio.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
Do you remember a moment when you thought, shit, we've made it? Like, what was the turning point where you thought, wow, we're being taken seriously now?
I thought it was going to be when we got on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I've done Top of the Pops. I've been on Top of the Pops, but it wasn't.
Gaz Whelan, the Mondays drummer, recalls when he felt that they were beginning to make it.
Probably 24 Hour Party People, the single, that maybe, after Tart Tart Party People, that kind of got... And Tart Tart was played on the chart show on a Sunday morning. And it got to number 1 in the indie charts. Indie charts was like kind of a big thing then. So that was when we started to gain people coming to the gigs. I mean, the first places we had an audience were London, Blackburn and Leeds. We couldn't get arrested in Manchester. Us and the Stone Roses couldn't get arrested. We were hated in Manchester. It was all that jingly jangly pop, and they hated us. The Manchester Press, Manchester radio station, they all hated us, yeah.
I wanted more and more and more.
What was the first Top of the Pops appearance?
It was Hallelujah, and the Roses did Fool's Gold.
Right, okay.
What a great moment, both going on Top of the Pops at the same time. I got told they had screens in pubs in Manchester, big TV screens, so people could watch it. Yeah.
The rock and roll mums, Paul and Sean's mum Linda and Gaz Whelan's mum Sandra, I remember that moment very well.
Oh,
Marvellous, that wasn't it?
we had all the relations.
Yeah.
So we got there. We didn't really know the Roses that well. They kept us apart in town. They were kind of from a different... Like, we used to see Manny would come in the Hacienda sometimes. We didn't really know him that well. We met him... As we arrived there, they were on stage doing Run Through. And we walked in and we'd both gone to Richard Crem, or Dick Cream as we called him, Richard Crem, to get our kitted out. And he'd give us all these designer clothes. I'd got this black gold chair top that zipped up, and Ian had the red version exactly the same. We walked in and we just went, oh no, yeah. And then we met him in the bar and had a drink, and we got on with him really well.
Manny, the bass player with the Stone Roses, also has really fond memories of that day.
That was a funny day. We was going to do a bit of swapping and changing, weren't we? So I think I was going to go and play the drums for the Mondays, and someone was going to come and do something play the bass for the Roses and so on. Never quite got round to it, but it would have been a good jolly jape.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, they'd made it now. They've got on top of the pops.
And I was just that was really nervous. I was disappointed because we thought the BBC bar, I thought it'd be full of like, you know, Nazis and Nazi soldiers and Roman soldiers and, you know, people dressed as cowboys and Indians, you know, and all that. And it was just a load of office staff. It was really boring.
I remember it being such a main event. You know, the people, there was like a big fucking party in Dry Bar. And it was like the Manchester's arrived.
Gonna be millionaires.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, I wish.
We did it all because I remember being we couldn't hear it, couldn't hear the playback, the playback on stage, having some time, and really, because you wouldn't grow up watching Top of the Pops since you was a kid, and I was scared to death, really, really petrified. And I think Paul, well, we all were, we was all petrified.
I don't think the fucking BBC knew what the fuck was going on that day. There was a lot of brandy quaffed, other substances ingested.
Was so glued to it.
Yeah.
And when you look back, and you know with experience, no one cares, no one sees, no one's looking, no one really bothers. But at the moment you think you're the centre of not you yourself, but what you're doing is exposed to everything.
It was a very, very special time, and it's good to see your buds doing well, you know.
And my phone never stopped ringing.
Oh, yeah.
We stayed behind afterwards, and then Tina Turner was on doing a pre-record for the next show. And me and Paul all said, oh, we've got to go see Tina Turner. Tina Turner, you know, I can Tina Turner, I've got to go and see her. And we walked out, and Paul went for a cig, and it got locked out. We lost him. So probably just walking slow behind, you know what he's like. And me and Ian Brown went in and watched her do this thing here, and she walked past, and Ian Brown went, yes, Tina. And she went, oh, you English boys. And I remember something like that. He says he said something else, but I think that's what she said. And Paul was really gutted and annoyed at us. He thought we'd left him on purpose. And that's all I remember. It was just a great day, but really, really nervous and scary day, that. That's probably the most nervous I've ever been in my life.
I don't think there was rivalry of any sort. We was always like, myself and Ian fucking loved Paul, loved the Mondays, and loved them all as guys, you know, and no, there was never they've one chart place above us or anything. You know, none of that going down. That was never on anyone's agenda, that. Probably all too smashed to fucking even think about that way, you know.
My dad, he got quite poorly, and that's when they were on Top of the Pops. And he said, I kept saying, come on, Dad, go and get into bed, we'll get you upstairs. I want to see the boys on the telly. And he watched them on the telly. We took him up to bed, and he died the next day. So he got his wish.
So when was it that you thought, right, we've made it now? Like, what was the...
Well, I thought it was going to be when we toured America. And it was like, okay, we've done that, but we need to come back and do bigger shows. So I still didn't think we'd made it.
Right.
So there was no defining moment.
Really? Not even when you did GMX or Wembley Arena or...
I've got a great Wembley story.
Go on.
Come on, what did he say? See if it's the same. I can't really remember.
It was coming off stage and Gaz got hold of me. He said, we've done it. I said, yeah, fucking great. We've played Wembley. He went, no, you dick. I wore knickers all the way through the show. He had women's underwear on.
No, I don't remember that, but we were Spinal Tap.
Oh, that's funny. Didn't he used to wear high heels as well sometimes, Gaz?
Oh, yeah, he has no problem doing that. I don't have a problem with him doing it either. He looks quite sexy.
So it was around this time that the Manchester EP was released, wasn't it? And John Pennington was involved in that as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The band had come back from the Hacienda one night, and they brought maybe 30 other people with them.
Wow.
And we were trying to get a vocal take out of Sean. Sean said, "Hey, I want everybody that's with us to experience what it's like in the studio." So we had at least 50 headphones that we could put out. So we had maybe 25 people in the studio. I don't know whether you've worn headphones and been listening to loud music through headphones before. Most people hum. You know, to whatever they're listening to. They don't know they're doing it because the vibration in their head. Basically, all of the recordings on Manchester, behind all the tracks, you've basically got 30 people all humming along to the track like,
And Sean scared the living daylights out of them in the control room at that time, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow Sean had managed to bring back a blank firing gun from America. The first I remember of it was Sean kicking the door open at the control room, which was like this thick. I mean, it wasn't small. It was a thick door. So he kind of kicked the door open with this blank firing gun. And Martin and I were mixing at the time. And so Sean comes in and says, I can't remember the line, but it's a line from a movie that he loved. This is a blag, get down on the floor or something, and let off these, 6 rounds of blank firing pistol in the control room, which is an acoustic space, so there's nowhere for it to go. And as soon as he'd done that, basically, Martin and I and everybody else that's in the room is just completely deaf. It's just like, I don't know how loud guns are, but basically, that was it for at least the day. So Martin and I just looked at each other, just like, can you hear anything? I was just like, what?
And you ended up being friends with John Pennington for the next 40 years, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we were at the point where you were releasing the Hallelujah EP.
Yeah.
And that was when I met you in Iceland, and then MTV started getting more interested.
That was a good moment, MTV, getting on MTV, thanks to you.
Was it?
Yeah.
Really? I used to share an office with Alan Howard, who worked alongside me at MTV. He was a producer there from 1987 to 1996.
Because nobody really knew how to take them. They weren't the kind of band that MTV were used to. MTV very much was set up as like a polished rock outfit, and we had people like, I don't know, George Michael and Culture Club, and these guys were coming along, and they were all not so much Culture Club, but they were pretty much trained into how to do an interview, how to behave like big stars. But the Mondays were like the complete opposite of that. They were a bunch of scallies from a housing estate who turned up, who weren't wearing necessarily the clothes that rock stars wore. They were wearing the clothes that blokes on a football terrace would wear, and it was big style stuff for where they came from, but not for the music press, and not for certainly not for MTV. And the music press went for them a lot more and a lot quicker than MTV did, because they just didn't know what to make of them.
Yeah, really? that was a good moment, but I still didn't think, we've made it. I still don't think we've made it.
What would have to happen for you to think, oh, we've made it?
At this point, probably one more album. We're
jumping ahead, but are we going to go there and talk about why there hasn't been one yet when you got back together 10 years ago, actually?
10 years ago.
Like, why has there not been a new Mondays album in the last 10 years?
I think it's because me and our kid aren't getting on.
Right.
We're not even on, I think I said this before, we're not even on the same book, never mind the same page. I think when me and him kind of start liking each other again, maybe there'll be an album. But I've got enough stuff and ideas for at least another 5 Mondays albums. I've never stopped writing.
reading between the lines, the blockage isn't the band, is it? The blockage is Sean. Sean's the one who doesn't want to do an album.
I sent him a text a few years ago saying I've got these great bass lines. Do you want me to send them to you with beats, bass lines and beats? You know, you do what you want with them. And he sent an email, a text back saying there's politics involved. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? There's politics involved.
That was all he said?
That's all he said.
So you didn't send them?
No, I never sent them. And now I've got 20 of them.
And there have been discussions about doing an album together, haven't there? So how did those discussions go?
So Sean approached me once with his great idea just before we were going on stage to do a show. He said, right, I've got a solo album. We're going to put it out under Happy Monday's name, and I'll give you a cut of the publishing. And it was like, I can't have a cut of publishing for something I've not done, and I've not even heard your solo album. And he didn't like that. And then, probably a year later, Gaz was staying at our house in near Topanga, and we went for a meeting with McGee on Sunset Boulevard. Lovely setting. And McGee came up with Sean wants to write all the music for the new Mondays album. And it's like, yeah, take my job away, dude. Why don't you? So
Sean wrote his melodies and lyrics for the Mondays songs as the singer, and the rest of the band you each wrote for your own instruments, right?
So for him to come up with, yeah, I've spoke to Sean, he wants to do all the music for the new album, and me and Gaz just went, no chance. Absolutely no chance. And that was it, just got left there.
There's no new music. And Alan McGee, who's their manager, when I saw him, I was like, why don't they do a new record? You know, and then he goes, I don't want to.
That's not true.
Oh.
No, I'm sure. Not saying that.
Maybe Sean.
Sean didn't want to do it. All the band were gagging to do an album, but Sean wanted to do a solo album and wanted the band to put it out as a Happy Mondays album. They all said, no, we're the band, we want to write the music. That's the truth.
Actually, probably I have heard that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Why do you think he wanted to exclude the band from the album?
Because of his ego. He's huge.
But somebody had to write the music, and if he can't write the music, then wouldn't it have made sense for him to work with the people that he knows he has the magic with?
It makes sense to me and you.
So what do you think the rationale was from his perspective?
He's puddled. I think our kid's puddled to the point of puddleness. Lives in Puddletown.
Who would have done the music?
I don't know. Maybe he just got other people in.
Yeah, instead of the real band.
Instead of the real band.
And then you would have had to tour as though that was your music.
Yeah.
And play the songs.
Yeah, I'd have to be a phony. Yeah. I ain't no phony.
No. There was a fifth album, wasn't there, that was officially a Mondays album but wasn't really a Mondays. Tell me about that one.
Oh, yeah. I think Gaz was the only original member, as well as Sean. It was Gaz and Sean. There's some good tracks on it. You know, I know Gaz did a lot of work on it, but it's not a Mondays album.
No.
How can it be?
Okay, let's go back to... We've done the Hallelujah EP.
Mm-hmm.
You went on MTV.
Mm-hmm.
Things started to kick off. You started to become known in Europe.
Yeah.
That's when the final ingredient of the magic cake came along. The fab Rowetta. What an amazing voice she's got. And she's a great woman. We love her, don't we?
I just sometimes talk too much, but usually when I'm drinking, I'm not drinking this week, so I'm all right. I've not had a Red Bull. I used to hang around the Happy Mondays office all the time after seeing them on the other side of midnight and deciding I'm going to join this band. It was Tony Wilson's show. They did performance and I decided that's the band for me because I'm a punk. And then the first time I'll have seen him, met him, would have been in the office because I was there all the time. Simply Red's manager had the office next door. They managed me, Elliot Rashman. So I was always in the Mondays office trying to get this role that wasn't created yet as the girl from the Mondays because I loved T-Rex and I wanted to be that girl to do something like that with the Mondays.
The next thing you did was you were asked to write a song on was it Island Records compilation?
Oh.
You had to pick a cover version.
Oh no, that was for Elektra in America, who we were signed to. It was their 40th anniversary of Elektra Records.
I thought it was Island Records.
No, it was signed to Elektra.
All right.
Come on, get your facts right. Getting your facts wrong.
Oh.
Make muddles. No, it was Elektra's 40th anniversary, and they was getting their current artist to do a cover version of a past release on Elektra. And by the time it got, I wanted to do Love Wars by Womack and Womack, but I think Paul Eaton ended up doing that one. So we was, by the time it got around to us, we was left with the dregs of the back catalogue.
Yeah.
And someone at Elektra sent us a cassette tape with like 6 or 7 songs on. And it was all awful. All of them. And then Step On came.
No.
He's going to step on you again.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Oh, God. What happened?
You did a song called Tokoloshi Man first.
No, we didn't.
You did.
No.
You did. I was there at the studio in Chiswick.
That's because we already done Step On.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry,
come
I'm
on,
interfering
Angela.
with the history here.
You was married to me.
I know. No, I wasn't at that point.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But that's my excuse.
So we got sent a cassette tape with 6 or 7 songs on. Pick one of these. It was all crap. And the best of the bunch was He's Gonna Step on You Again, because I found a loop, a percussion loop, in the song that would work as a groove. So we sampled it and had it going round as a groove, and we was working on this song, and it was time to do it in the studio with Paul Oakenfold and Steve Osborne. This is way before Pills and Thrills. It was like Elektra was giving us free studio time, and we was going to write this song with these 2 guys in Chiswick, and it turned out to be Step On. And halfway through the sessions, I don't care what anybody says, whether they claim it or not, it's not true. It was me that said, this is too good to go on a compilation album. We need to release this as a single. This is a hit record.
And Paul Oakenfold agreed.
When Step On came, it was like, oh my God, this is a proper international record. This is a hit record with a fresh sound and a different approach and a great bunch of not the best musicians in the world, but who had a vibe and a swagger, with a great vocalist with Rowetta, with a character like Bez. It was a moment in musical time that you look back on and go, wow, man, what is this? And the kids wanted to buy into it. And they did. They bought into the swagger, the look, the style. Again, it was right time, right place.
Wasn't Tony Wilson, wasn't Steve Osborne, wasn't Sean Ryder. It was me. Halfway through the session, after I heard Mark Day put his guitar down, it was like, whoa, this is fucking good. This is really good. And Nathan took that on board. He went, I think you're right. You know, we need to put this out as a single, and it proved me right.
But didn't get to know him really well until we started recording, really. Would have been when we did Step On. So, yeah, I invited Nathan to come and watch me at a gig opposite in Legends, where they filmed Rope for Luck. And so Nathan came to see me and said yes a couple of weeks later. So I went to record it, Step On, in Eden, in Chiswick, and did my vocals.
So we then Nathan had to get in touch with Elektra and say, look, I know you paid for this, but we want to put it out as a single. They agreed.
Did you have to give them the money for the studio?
No. That's when we did Tokoloshi Man, which was the B-side, which was another John Conger's song. And we gave them that for their 40th anniversary box set.
That was a good song too. I like.
Yeah,
that
it was
song.
okay. It was okay. Yeah. Our kids got a bit of beef with John Conger's because we never got any publishing for that. I mean,
Why would you expect publishing though if it was his song?
because Sean's got an ego.
Oh, okay. But there was
Back to the big ego.
There was an issue with Step On. The keyboard of Step On, I think, was that written by Steve Osborne?
No, that was all Paul Davis.
Was that Paul Davis? Because that was a new part of the song that the Mondays put onto the song. But because you didn't get any publishing at all, if anybody uses that as a sample, the Mondays don't get the money.
Yeah.
The original writers of the song get the money. That's not right, is
No,
it?
that's not fair. I think the only person that should get publishing off that song is actually Paul Davis.
Yeah.
For that keyboard intro.
Which is, like, I mean, it's iconic, really,
Yeah,
isn't it?
you know what song it is as soon as that comes on. Yeah. The only person that should get publishing for that, certainly not Sean. Maybe I should. It's a complete new baseline, but I followed his blueprint for the changes in the song, so no, I don't deserve it. Paul Davis.
Yeah. Talk a bit about Paul Davis. He's kind of a quirky character, isn't he?
Very, very eccentric.
But a sweet guy.
Yeah, very funny, very eccentric, and obviously very creative.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the intro to Step On.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I did, but they say we like that, play it again, and I couldn't, and it'd be sequenced and cut down, and so I've had a lot of help off a lot of people, including the band. Yeah, I learnt a different way of playing.
Mega.
So, again, we're jumping ahead here, but he's the only original member that's no longer in the band, isn't he? Are you sad about that?
Yeah, sad about it, but I think, you know, he was there 10 years ago on that reunion when we all got back together, you know, and he stepped out of it gracefully.
Yeah.
And Dan, who does his job now, who does keyboards and programming, he's been with us 10 years. And he's like... he's integrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so did Step On come out before Pills and Thrills was recorded?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That was really... So then you were like, shit, we've got to get another album together quickly and ride on this wave of the popularity.
Yeah, and we was in our rehearsal room in Stretford. We'd moved out of somewhere and family's place in Stretford. And we was writing a new album, and it was time to go and record it. And we had like 5 or 6 ideas. One of them was Kinky Afro, which came from that Hot Chocolate cassette tape.
Oh, really? Did it?
Yeah. Not the actual. Just the feel and the groove of Kinky Afro came from that Hot Chocolate cassette tape.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was playing it a lot. I was playing a lot of Hot Chocolate. So we went with half-written Kinky Afro, half-written Dennis and Lois, which wasn't called Dennis and Lois at the time. It was just the new one. None of them had titles. So we went there with half an album full of ideas, and we did the rest in the studio.
Is that normal to wait to be in the studio before you write? You're not meant to have written stuff before you go in? And...
Yeah, we always had done, because we had plenty of time to write songs. But we didn't have enough time to write them all. We needed to get in the studio.
Yeah. Paul and Sean's mum, Linda, helped them prepare for that trip to America in her own special way.
The first time they ever went to America, Sean came in with his bag of washing. He'd just bought these jeans and he wanted them washing first. Well, they both had these jeans that was in fashion then. And they were all ripped. And they'd gone, and I thought, oh my goodness, they can't go to America with the holes in the jeans. And I spent hours stitching all these rips up. And they came in, what have you done to our jeans? And you can't go to America with them. We've bought them like that. And after they bought these ripped jeans, and I thought they needed sewing because they couldn't take holy jeans to America with them.
So who picked where you went to do that?
It was all of us. It was like, let's do it, because we was finishing a tour of America, and it was like, why not stay over here, go into Capitol Studios. I think Nathan found it, and it was cheaper than doing it in London.
Wow.
For us all to stay over in LA, use Capitol Studios, use Frank Sinatra's microphones, which we did, and we all stayed for like 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Where did you actually sleep? Like where were you?
We was in the Oakwood Apartments in Burbank.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
That was kind of a strange place, full of old porn stars and movie stars, and all in like their 80s, doddering around, being at the pool.
Were you partying during that time? Was it like a hedonistic period for you or not?
No, it was serious work. We worked from 11 in the morning till 11 at night.
There was demos, rough songs, but within that rough song, I always knew there was a diamond somewhere.
Yeah.
And Sean's lyrics were brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, call the cops, you're twisting my melon, man. You know, I'd like to teach the world to sing. You know, these lines spilled over into the club world. The clubs I was playing at that time, people were like, yeah, call the cops. And it wouldn't mean call the cops. It would mean, you know, it's going off, we're having a great time.
It was, I remember me and Paul Oakenfold would lock ourselves into a vocal booth where he had his DJ decks set up, and he'd be playing bits of records for me to get ideas. And I'd say, no, don't like that. And he'd skip along and play these 12-inch singles, and it was like, that's good there. Keep playing that bit over and over, and he'd turn it into a loop so I could get a bass line. I remember it on Loose Fit. We did Loose Fit and a couple of other songs me and Paul Oakenfold did.
Of course, Bez was there too, bringing his unique vibe to the table.
We just had the most amazing time was working with Osborne and Oakenfold. He created this whole new sound. He understood what the Mondays, our vision of what we thought we was. They made us that band, you know what I mean?
When I got involved with Wrote for Luck, it changed their sound. It changed it changed everything about Happy Mondays, from being that jingly jangly band which they were known as, to something that was more focused, something that that generation at that time that were into acid house, taking pills, going for it, were all into. Right, that was the change. So that's why they came back to me and said, "Could you do Hallelujah?" And when I done Hallelujah, then it led on to the album, because suddenly Happy Mondays were known for this,
Right.
not for that.
Right.
And that's when they started to become a lot more popular across the board and the country.
And finally, as Alan Howard explains, MTV caught up to the Mondays.
There was a whole new audience coming out, which was the clubbing scene, and it was going out and taking loads of drugs, going to warehouses, getting off your head, and they were perfect for that. And that's the opposite of stadium rock, which is what MTV was all about prior to then. So I think there was a big culture shock when they came along.
Paul Oakenfold was careful to make his work style fit in with the band.
I had a different way of working to them. And we had to make sure that we're all on the same page here, you know.
His choice of car made Gaz Whelan laugh.
He had a car, he had a red Mustang convertible. We was all like, you fucking cockney. Of course you have, you know what I mean? But he was lovely. He was really, really sweet, Paul Oakenfold. I must say, really sweet. Paul got on with him really well because he knew his old funk records and soul records. So Paul got on with him really well. And he used to have a booth and he used to play records. Oaken was lovely. Really nice bloke.
Usually when you record a band, they're all in the same room and they're playing, and then producers, and giving them directions and telling them what to do. But I didn't do it like that. I didn't produce the record like that. It was individual moments with the members of the band, talking them through the process of what we had done when it came to remixing.
Mark Day, the Mondays guitarist, also appreciated that time.
We had our own apartments, our own cars. I was in Capital Records, and just going in that building was like awe-inspiring because you could see all the artists on the wall. It was. But there again, we did things separately. So it'd be like, right, I used to do my bit in the morning when I'm fresh, when there's nobody about, while they're all in bed. I don't want any interference. Don't mither me, because it used to get me back up. When you're in the studio, and Paul was the same, you like to have nobody around, just go in and do your bit. And next thing I turn around and, what's it called, out of The Cult, Ian Ashbury was behind. And people walking in and out, well, what's going on here then?
Was it exciting when you bumped into people like that and they were taking an
Yeah. Be walking down Holloway Boulevard and there'd be some filming going on, a load of people dressed up as aliens. I thought, this is a bit weird. And filming, they're all filming. You know, there's a film set everywhere. Something always going on in Holloway Boulevard. It was like crazy. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Yeah, really enjoyed that. And after that, I knew I was going somewhere after that album.
Actually being out in LA, we had big convertible cars, driving around thinking we're Lord of the Man. And we had such an amazing time out there, you know what I mean? And the great thing about it as well at that time, that the band was getting on great as well.
Paul was quiet. Paul was thorough. Paul would turn up and do what he wanted, what he needed to do. Mm-hmm. We could sit with Paul individually and say, change it up a bit, do this, do that, and he would. But Paul was solid. Paul was always a solid member of the band that you spoke to, and what you asked him to do, he would do, and do quicker than other members of the band.
Right.
And that was Paul's role. You've got a room full of characters. Mm. It's not easy to manage characters, but Paul was thorough. None of them were trouble. None of them I had issues with.
Yeah.
I think they all knew that we were on to something that was special, and I think that's why they were all on time and turned up.
Was Bez around at that point?
Oh, yeah, Bez was around.
Yeah?
Yeah, he'd come in and sit in the corner and wobble his head and give his seal of approval.
And I think it was Bez's idea to get Oakenfold and get a DJ, because Bez had been out in a beef and said, the DJs, they're producing dance records, I don't know why they shouldn't produce bands. I'm sure it was an off-the-cuff comment by Bez.
And how well behaved was Sean at that point?
Very well behaved.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There's no, partying, going off the rails, or...?
No. There's one party that I never went to that Bez went to, the infamous one where he turned Julia Roberts down.
Tell me about that.
He said he came back from this party that was, I think it was in a castle somewhere, some weird castle. He came back and said, who's Julia Roberts? He said, she's an actress. Yeah, she was showing me a passport saying, I'm Julia Roberts, I want to go out with you. Let's go somewhere. I turned her down. He didn't know who Julia Roberts was.
And the irony is, your kids ended up going to school with her.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Small old world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's more coincidences around that school. We'll come to that later. So tell me about more times that you had in LA when you were doing that album. Can you think of any incidents that went on in the studio?
No, although it was parties, it wasn't crazy parties.
Gaz remembers one particular night.
Soul to Soul were playing. So we turned up there, and I don't know what we'd had. We'd had something. I can't remember what it was. What had we had? What had we taken? Taken something. And we turned up there, and it was like we got on the guest list through the record label in America. And obviously 7 of us, all off our nut and drunk, and we turn up, and obviously it's America, Soul to Soul, we're the only white people in the audience. And we're like halfway up at the back, and about 3 songs in, we're all just like dancing off our head, and the crowd are turning, looking at us. And then someone from Soul to Soul points up to the singers, and he's like, they're getting like, you know, and like they're looking at us, people are looking at us, and then they're back watching the band, you know, and all that. And then afterwards there was a party at the hotel. We got there, and Jazzy B wouldn't let us in. One of the dancers was from Manchester. From Moss Side, he said, you can't let it in. You ruined the show. So
we hooked up with the Scousers and the Cockneys.
Yeah.
And it was like the first wave of ecstasy in America. They was bringing it over from England.
Okay.
And it was like the select few was getting this ecstasy from England by the Cockneys and the Scousers.
It was really like a magical moment for the band. 8 weeks in LA, imagine 8 weeks in LA, you know what I mean? That could have been really dangerous.
John Pennington recalls the awful day when he found out that Paul had passed away.
When I got the news that, you know, he died, I was thinking back to all the good times when he'd smile, and you'd catch him because he wasn't a smiler. He wasn't one guy who goes around being super happy. But when you really made him smile, and it was like a moment, you know, it really helped me out in my time of struggle. It was a huge loss, not only because he'd been there from the start of my career and popped in along the way and always been the same. He'd never changed, you know, never been a different person than what Paul was. The teenager Paul was the 50-year-old Paul. But the serious shit that he had to deal with was just devastating to him. I felt lost, you know, because I'd lost somebody who was a very, very important part of my life. Losing a friend is bad enough, but losing somebody that's that important in music is devastating, really. There was nobody else like Paul. The sound, the persona, the swagger on stage, the groove which made Manchester move.
Coming up on the show next week.
I felt sad, you know, you've seen the kind of the rise and fall of someone. You know, and that's what happens sometimes when drink and drugs gets the better of you.
There was a couple of people in the band doing heroin, and then he'd lost being about the music.
It ended up being a complete nightmare.
Yeah.
It took me to dark, dark places I never want to go again.
I was so intertwined with the Happy Mondays at one point. People thought I was from Manchester.
What, with an accent like that?
I know, until they heard me talk.
Okay, we're playing out with another Big Arm track. This is sweet soul music, and watch out for the Big Arm album being released any day now. This is some live footage that was shot in 2007 at a gig at the Inn on the Green in London. Thank you to our fab guests, and of course to you for being with us. Please consider becoming a patron of the show. We're going to start giving a shout out to all of our patrons, and we've got some exciting goodies planned. So go to the website and find the link to the Patreon account. Please give us a nice review and rating, it really helps, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. The website is paulryder.tv. It's got links to all of our socials, as well as a cool shop with some really fun merch. So go and have a look, treat yourself, and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Please join us again next week, same time, same place. And remember, the video version of the podcast premieres every Sunday at 8 p.m. UK time and noon Pacific time. And me and Chico are there in the chat to answer any questions. We're going to have some other people joining us from time to time too. So thank you again for being here, and see you next week. Bye.
It's just sweet soul music. Life is just sweet soul music. Life is just sweet soul music. Life is Glistening Productions.
You'd drive yourself crackers if you let it bother you.
Yeah, you would.